The U.S. should let the Bush-era tax cuts expire. That's what Simon Johnson, the noted MIT economist, believes will bring down the nation's huge deficit. He makes his case in the book White House Burning, co-authored with James Kwok. When I interviewed Johnson, he explained why those Bush tax cuts are hurting, not helping U.S. finances.
We need to make a fiscal adjustment in this country. We have lost track of the fact that you need revenue to underpin any kind of sensible government activity. And if you look at the political horizon, the only moment coming anytime soon when you can make such an adjustment is the expiration of the Bush-era tax cuts at the end of this year.
What do you think of President Obama's proposal that the Bush tax cuts should not be extended for people making more than $250,000 a year? Would you be in favor of that?
It's not enough. Yes, I think that you shouldn't extend the tax cuts, you should let them expire, but you should let all of them expire. And if you feel that you need to support the economy at that point, you should replace them or propose to replace them with a temporary payroll tax cut tied, for example, to employment relative to population. So as the economy recovers, that tax cut would go away.
What do you say to the argument that the economy is too weak and if you raise taxes at this time, it's going to choke off the recovery?
Well, I agree that you don't want to choke off the recovery. And the fiscal proposal we have in our book, many of them are to be phased in over 2 decades. But I don't think you should just postpone decisions and postpone the hard work on this. I think not extending the Bush-era tax cuts sends a huge signal to investors around the world that the U.S. is really serious about getting its fiscal accounts in order.
Simon, you also propose raising other taxes, more spending cuts, leaving Medicare and Social Security as is, leave them alone. You know that these are politically complicated fixes. So what happens if this stalemate continues in Washington?
Well, the real danger is that we'll do nothing. And of course, the fact that bond markets are very favorable towards the United States, so the Treasury can borrow at an extremely low interest rate, 2% for a lot of maturities, sends the politicians the wrong signal. And that's how many of the European economies got themselves into difficulty. They didn't want to make ever difficult choices, and they didn't want to present voters with any hard truths. Well, eventually, you have too much debt. Eventually, you will get into some form of fiscal problem, and interest rates will go up. If interest rates go up with our current levels of debt, if we go up to 4%, 6%, 8%, this will be very difficult, and then you will be forced into some form of really tough, precipitate austerity that would exactly push you back into recession.
So are you saying that we might have to go through those tough austerity measures that we saw going on in Europe? I mean, how real is that?
Well, we're not Greece. And we will not ever be Greece, okay? We haven't tied ourselves into a crazy monetary system like the Eurozone. We have time and we have space. But ultimately, if we postpone this, if we refuse to deal with it, down the road, the international markets will turn against us. You cannot assume that the U.S. government will be able to borrow an infinite amount for the indefinite future at 2%. That would be completely contrary to our experience, historically, the experience of other countries.
Let's turn and talk a little bit about Europe. Do you think that it's getting closer to fixing its financial problems?
The Europeans are a long way from solving their problems. They need to deal with the issue of fiscal unification within the Eurozone, and that's not even on the agenda yet. They need more crises to push them in that direction, which is not good for them and certainly not good for us, but that's where we are.
But is the fear of contagion gone?
No, it's not gone. It's not gone within Europe, and it's not gone between Europe and the United States. Some policymakers are trying to ignore it. I think the Federal Reserve in particular has got its eyes closed on this issue. But the contagion through the banking system is very real and a very serious danger this year, next year, and for the foreseeable future.